few more seconds while everybody's able to join. It takes a few seconds. Okay, it looks as if we're about ready to start. I'm Holly McClurg, the superintendent of the Del Mar Union School District. Welcome to all of our parents and any staff members who are joining us tonight for this parent webinar. We're pleased that you've set a few minutes aside. Actually, the next hour we'll be with you. We'll be done at 7 o'clock. So thank you. We hope to share some good information that will be helpful to you this evening. And along with me here tonight is Shelley Peterson, our Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Services, Jason Romero, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Jenny Ha, our Director of Student Services, and Chris Delahanty, our Executive Director of Capital Programs and Technology. So we're here this evening so that we can actually, as I was saying, share information that will be helpful to you and your families. We will record this presentation and post it for those parents who are unable to attend live, but we are here live. We've continued planning in order to bring students back to our schools, and that is and continues to be our highest priority. We, as we talked about a couple of days ago with you, we know the value of school. We share that value with you, and we understand how important being able to go to school is for our children and for all of you as families. We want to do this safely. We want to bring our children and our staff back and make sure that they are safe as we do so. So our goal tonight is to answer your questions so that you can make plans for your families. We continue to work within the guidelines from Health and Human Services Agency and the California Department of Health. And as we do that, and as we've actually made done planning throughout the last couple of months, we actually have we have seen other districts and had a lot of collaboration with other districts and seen the decision making that they're doing, and other districts may make decisions that are different than us and actually have made decisions that are different than our district along the way. And those districts need to do what's right for their children and for their district. And just because one district makes a certain decision doesn't necessarily make that decision the best one for other districts. So it's important that we look at the Del Mar Union School District, at what our parents are telling us, and what we know about our children, our families, and our staff in order to make the best decisions for everyone here. So thank you for being a part of that process. We continue to hear from many of you. We get many emails and a lot of response when we ask for questions. That's very helpful for us. And many of the responses right now are coming from parents who are really asking us for assurance that we are working very hard to be able to open our schools. And I do assure you that that is what we are doing. We are doing everything we can to put measures in place so that we can bring children and our staff back into our schools and be able to do it while we minimize the risk as much as possible. So in doing so, we are, as you probably already know, offering parents a choice for their children of in-person school or launch. We'll talk about that more this evening and answer some of your questions that you had specific to that. So now let's go on to some of the questions that parents gave us. We had a webinar 2 nights ago on Tuesday, and at the end of that webinar, we kept the chat open, and you sent in a lot of questions, and actually I got quite a few emails we did from parents since then as well with other questions. I assure you we got to all of those questions. We're going to give as many answers tonight as we can. Some of those questions we may not have enough information to give you answers tonight, but we'll have more conversation with you as we go forward. So the themes that came out from the questions you submitted on Tuesday were definitely around more questions around launch and in-person school, the reopening waiver, student cohorts and groupings of students. Many parents asked questions to further clarify health and safety precautions. There were quite a few questions or responses about school closures and then reopening. And then we had some parents that were very interested in the Del Mar Heights relocation, and could we give some more information about that? And then after school programs. So we will speak to all of those this evening and hopefully answer a lot of the questions that were brought before us from the Tuesday webinar. So thank you to all of you who submitted those questions. So let's talk a little bit about the facts then that we are looking at. I talked about this on Tuesday with you. So again, we have a monitoring list, and actually this is a watch list. And districts end up on a watch list because they're part of a local health jurisdiction that has been on the monitoring list within the last 14 days. So if we're on the monitoring list, we actually are on it for one of these 4 reasons. And the San Diego County is our jurisdiction. And because San Diego County meets one of these areas, it's the case rate, our school district being within that jurisdiction is also part of that watch list. So because of that, schools and districts are not allowed to reopen if we are on that watch list, if we are within the LHJ that is on that watch list. So again, here you can see the case rate. If it's greater than 100 positive cases per 100,000 people in the general population. Another criteria is if the positivity rate, those who are tested, is greater than 8%. If there is increasing hospitalization that is greater than a 10% increase, and if the ICU beds available are less than 20%. So you can see there below, this is our data from July 22nd, yesterday. The case rate was 154 per 100,000 in the general population, and that is above the 100. That is the one factor that is putting our county, our LHJ, on the watch list, and us being a part of that county puts us right there with the entire county. The positivity rate has been at 7%. It's been hovering anywhere between 4, 5, 6, 7. And the increasing hospitalizations in our county are sitting at 1% as of yesterday, and the ICU beds available at 29%. So then we move on and we talk about, we've had a lot of questions, as I was saying, about the waiver, because there is a waiver that is part of what the governor's order was. We are, and you can see here, the waiver, this criteria can be granted by the local health order for elementary schools to open for in-person instruction. A waiver may only be granted if one is requested by the superintendent in consultation with labor, parent, and community organizations. Local health officers must review local community epidemiological data, consider other public health interventions, and consult with the California Department of Public Health when considering a waiver request. So we've received extensive outreach from parents who are asking about the waiver, and the many parents who are asking about the waiver are asking that our district actually pursue a waiver. So we've not actually received the specific waiver information yet from the state regarding how a district would pursue a waiver. So we're waiting for that, and we will continue to work with all involved on what is the best action to take for our district, as it would perhaps relate to the potential of requesting a waiver. So we will keep you informed on that and continue to work with everyone involved. So hopefully that gives information about the waiver. We are hoping to know rather soon from the state what those particular steps and what that criteria would be. So we continue to work on our safe reopening, and Jenny's going to share more about plans and specific site plans for our safe reopening.
Thank you, Holly. So in my previous presentations, I've referred frequently to the district's reopening plan. The reopening plan is a document that will address the required health and safety guidelines that have been indicated by the California Department of Public Health. Each school site committee will meet to develop schedules and determine the logistics for implementing specifics such as ingress and egress and distancing measures for their specific school. So this is our district safe reopening plan format, and we will be housing that will be located on our DMUSD web page. Next slide. As I mentioned on Tuesday, we will be requiring face coverings for all students and staff. Any type of face cloth covering or a disposable face mask can be worn. We will expect that during snack and lunch, because students will not be masked, that they will maintain a distance of at least 6 feet. Students will need to store their face covering in a personal bag while they eat. We will also have outdoor spaces designated for students to eat while distancing and while staying within their cohorts. We will also have disposable face coverings available for any student that needs a replacement during the day or forgets to bring one. And, okay. There you go. We know that the combination of face coverings, distancing, and hand washing are the optimal measures for reducing transmission. We've had quite a lot of questions about the 6 feet of distancing. So we will have staff desks 6 feet from students as indicated in the order. And like I've said before, we've talked quite a bit about distancing and what that means for elementary school students. We will be teaching our students the importance of physical distancing. We take physical distancing very, very seriously. We're taking these health guidelines very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to provide a safe environment for all of our students. So we will be teaching our students the importance of physical distancing and how to maintain a healthy distance. And we'll make sure that students know the expectations for distancing during the day, and we'll be available and ready to support them in meeting those expectations. And we also know that at the end of the day, they're still children, and maintaining a strict 6 feet of distance from their friends will not be natural. And especially for our younger students, this may be a challenge. So it is for that reason that we're requiring face coverings for all students and requiring that when students must remove their mask or their face covering during lunch or snack, that they will be distanced. Our small class sizes will allow for distancing inside the classroom, and we will be maximizing the outdoor space by providing tents for outdoor learning. We will be asking students to stay with their teacher and their cohort throughout the day as much as possible. And finally, we will not be allowing visitors or parents or volunteers to access the campus during the day. Only students and staff who have been checked for our symptoms and our staff will have temperature screens may enter campus. So only after a symptom check would a student and a staff member be able to enter campus. All right, this is our mitigation protocol. I did review this on Tuesday, but we received quite a few questions about the possibilities of exposure and quarantining, so I wanted to touch again on it tonight. This is the protocol that's provided by the California Department of Public Health, and it is what we will be using by our COVID response team when there is a health concern for a student or a staff member. So I want to clarify the quarantining precautions for students or staff who are exposed. So I did highlight that middle section there for contact with a confirmed positive. If a student or staff member is directly in close contact with or exposed to a confirmed positive case, he or she will need to quarantine for 14 days, and testing will also be recommended. So again, this only applies to direct contact. So in other words, if a student's parent is a confirmed case, the student who may have been exposed or most likely was exposed to the parent will need to quarantine and likely be tested, but that does not mean that the entire class would need to be quarantined. The quarantine would only be due to a direct exposure of a confirmed case. Okay, so now Chris is going to let you know a little bit more about our school site preparation.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Good evening. If you were at our Tuesday meeting, you will recognize parts of this slide, but I did want to go through it again and highlight a couple of areas. Again, we have done a lot of work on our HVAC systems in cleaning our filters, updating our filters and replacing them and cleaning the coils within the HVAC system, and working with the engineering firm that works with one of our architect firms to ensure that we're allowing the maximum outside air. We've adjusted our running to ensure that we're running it outside of operational hours so that the air is being cycled after the day ends and before the day begins, and therefore it will cycle at least 6 times before staff members enter a room. A highlight, a little change from how we wrote this last time, the cleaning. We want to really make it clear one person has been hired for every school for the specific purpose of disinfecting high-touch areas and restrooms. What this means is we will have an additional staff member on site during the day, a new hire. will be added to the team. So every site will have their plant manager, they'll have this additional staff member, and they'll have 2 night custodians that will allow us to do the high-touch areas and cycle through. So those high-touch areas are being cleaned on a very regular basis. We anticipate we will clean them every hour to hour and a half. And therefore that cycling through means that the front offices, the door handles, the restrooms will be cleaned periodically, continually throughout the day. And we will still have the staffing to be able to do the sanitizing of every room every day, take out the trash, and take care of our lunch areas. Again, our hand cleaning is extremely important. My next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about outdoor sinks at every school. And again, we have installed hand sanitizers at every school site throughout the school. We just had a discussion with our maintenance team, and we're adding a few more in some sites where the sinks are in the hallways. So we have even more hand sanitizer available, readily available, and then we'll have it in the classrooms. In addition, as we said last time, we have ordered tents for outdoor learning. We are already scheduling the installation of those tents. We've been mapping out the locations for those tents, and we will have those tents installed in early August so that we have tenting on all of our sites between the 1st and 2nd week of August to ensure that we're ready for the new school year. Again, lunch tables have been moved to outside adjacencies to classrooms, and umbrellas have been ordered so that we have shade for students and teachers can expand on their classrooms. And we have an abundance of supply of wipes for every classroom so that teachers have the ability to do an extra round of sanitizing whenever it is needed. Specific to the outdoor sinks, we have installed outdoor sinks at Ocean Air and Del Mar Hills, and I have pictures of these as you can see to the right. We have scheduled install at Ashley Falls, Carmel Del Mar, Sage Canyon, Sycamore Ridge, and Torrey Hills. And so every one of our schools will get outdoor sinks in multiple locations. These outdoor sinks are being built in a manner where we have distance between the 2 sinks. And they're also outside so that we don't have to have students go into a restroom each time they need to use a sink. And we can also spread students out and have more hand washing stations. In addition, drinking fountains are stipulated to be disabled as part of the orders that we've received. And we had been planning already to install water bottle fillers at every school site, and we've ensured that those are going in, and those are going in locations so that our students can still hydrate, still get water, while doing it in a sanitary manner that allows them to refill their water bottles. So with that, I will hand it over to Shelley Peterson.
Thank you, Chris. So I want to share a little bit more. We still had several questions about in-person learning and what it might look like if we start the school year with both our launch program and then in-person learning, which may begin with a remote classroom setting. So important to know that in-person learning, and as recently as July 16th, it really was the mandate from the state that priority was daily in-person instruction full-time with 180 days of instruction. And actually Assembly Bill 77 stated that local education agencies, or LEAs, needed to offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. And that in-person instruction being defined as physically present with the educator and the students while students were engaged in learning activities. It wasn't until July 17th that the governor gave a new directive and guidelines for schools reopening, which required, according to that mandate, which required us to rethink what reopening might look like. Up to that very point, we had been planning for our two options, the in-person learning as well as remote, as well as our lunch program. But we knew that there was a possibility that we would be faced with temporary school closure again. And this is no small undertaking for our teachers. So we immediately scheduled a additional training for all of our teachers who had intended to come back and are intending to come back for in-person instruction. And it is requiring them to rethink and rework what teaching and learning looks like when they have to operate from a remote classroom. And we are putting a lot of our planning into transitioning to those two pathways for that in-person option that many parents will select when they make their final decision by August 3rd. There is a difference between our in-person classes and our launch distance learning, even if we begin with remote classrooms at the beginning of the school year. So students whose parents opted into in-person learning will stay in that in-person learning cohort or classroom, even if we have to begin remotely. They don't move over into the launch program. Launch is that separate distance learning program with specific staff identified to teach in the launch program for the entire year. Now, logistically speaking, if all students have to begin school in a remote or distance format, we will plan for all of the same things, and that being that we will plan for materials pickup. We will ensure students all have the technology necessary so that they can begin the school year successfully. We will plan for textbook distribution. We will plan for supply distribution. So logistically, it could look the same if we are unable to open in person on August 24th. The key difference is that as soon as we are able to open in person, those students whose families selected the in-person learning model, they will come back into the classroom as soon as we are able. The launch students will continue to stay in that distance learning program. And you know, we place a very, very high priority on that in-person teaching and learning. There is no replacement for that in-person interaction between teachers and students, and teachers' ability to respond in the moment to the learning needs of students. We will do an outstanding job. Our teachers work very, very hard, and they will do an outstanding job no matter which format they are presented with. And we believe that the best instruction occurs when our children have the ability to be present in a classroom. And so we will continue to work toward making that happen. Next slide, please, Chris. So what professional learning is available and have we invested in for teachers? So we've made a district investment of more than $500,000 already to train all teachers and prepare them for remote classrooms and launch distance learning. And that includes providing teachers the opportunity to enroll in leading edge certification. I touched on this last Tuesday, but that certification is specifically designed to equip teachers with knowledge and skills to facilitate either a blended model or a distance learning educational format. So teachers have the ability to enroll in that and work on that certification now over the summer, and that can continue on into the school year as well. We have already set up trainings for our launch teachers as well as our teachers who will be in person at school, teachers in iReady Mathematics and iReady Reading. And those formats are those platforms, and that curriculum is adaptive, and it allows more seamlessly to work in that remote learning classroom or in a distance learning format within our launch program. We also, as I explained before, we will be utilizing Google Classroom as the learning management system to help facilitate that seamless interaction between parents and students. And we have set up those training dates already for all teachers within our district. And now I will turn it over to Jason to talk about the in-person learning class sizes.
Good evening, families. Thank you. So as we look at our in-person learning, one of the things that we really wanted to take a lot of effort to ensure was that our current enrollment in our classes has less students than they did in the previous year. So we can just use last year as an example. So last year in 2019-2020, the district-wide enrollment was 4,203 students. The district has been in a decline in enrollment over the past 4 years. 4 years ago, the district was over 4,500 students. And next year, our projected enrollment is to be less than 4,000. Currently, we have 3,901 students enrolled. So that is a 300 less student number than we had just one short year ago. So to address that, we're already going to have smaller class sizes because the decrease in enrollment, and we are adding an additional 12 teachers into the mix. So an additional 12 teachers into the K-6 environment to ensure that those class sizes are even lower. The goal for our K-3 program is to have classes in the high teens, so anywhere from 15, 16, 17, 18 students. And then in our upper grades in the very low 20s, actually 19, 20, 21, ensuring that those cohorts are greatly reduced from where they were just 1 year ago. There's been a lot of questions about, if I enroll in the launch program, the distance learning program, and mid-year I decide to change over and go into the in-person learning, will I have that opportunity? And yes, you will have that opportunity. The number of spaces, though, will be limited and dependent upon how many spaces we have available in those classrooms at your school site. So there's no guarantee if you select the launch program now that there will be a grade level assignment available at your school of residence or your school of attendance. We want to remember to prioritize low class sizes, so we will be making sure that those class sizes stay lower. So you just need to be very understanding that there may be a space available. It may not be at your school of attendance that you're currently registered for. And the reason behind this in both programs is to ensure the continuity in learning. Shelley talked about the extensive training that our teachers are getting in, but there's also the importance of ensuring that if a student starts in a program, starts with a teacher, that we ensure the continuity of that learning throughout the program, whether they're in person or they're doing the launch program. That continuity that where a student is in that year remains consistent throughout the year. So to do that, we want to make sure that we're limiting the number of movements in and out. There will be opportunities to go both ways if you want to go back into the launch program, but it's all dependent upon space. We're also looking at how we're addressing our Spanish immersion program. So our Spanish language immersion program, new for the 2021 school year. We're looking at ways to reduce class sizes in that program, and we'll be reaching out and working with those families outside of this environment to talk about our options and plans that we have for that program. But just like the general K-6 program, we are looking at ways to reduce the number of students that will be participating in those cohorts to ensure that we're addressing social distancing issues within that program as well. Thank you.
Right. We also had some questions about the Del Mar Heights relocation and the impact that might have. And as Jason just shared, we have prioritized keeping our class sizes low and keeping our numbers low. And as we look at the enrollments, the current total enrollments of students that are moving towards in-person learning at Del Mar Hills with the Del Mar Hills students and the Del Mar Heights students in kinder through third grade is a total enrollment of 423. At Oceanair, that total enrollment of Oceanair students and 4th through 6th grade Del Mar Heights students is 689. As you can see, if you've been involved in this process, this is well below the numbers that we were talking about prior to COVID-19. As we were looking at this last year, we believe Del Mar Hills would be a little over 500 students and Oceanair would be a little over 800 students. With this reduction in numbers, we have not reduced any numbers in the number of classes at the school site. So we're still using the interim housing that we were going to bring on. We are still using each of the classrooms that we were going to use. So as we talked about, we are still using all of the spaces that we can use. Continuing with this small class size will allow for distancing, and we will still be working towards having outdoor learning options at both sites. classroom adjacencies for outdoor learning, as well as tents that are set up with spaces for students for each class. So while we do have some students from Del Mar Heights at those sites, we are able to keep the social distancing, the class sizes, and the ability for indoor and outdoor learning at those two sites well in hand, related to the ability and the work that Jason has done in keeping our class sizes low and keeping our class sizes very manageable to allow for the indoor, outdoor, and the ability to keep class sizes down and distance with that in mind. With that, I'm going to hand it to Shelley on our launch program.
Thank you, Chris. So a little more about our launch program. We had several questions and several requests actually that we consider grouping students in the launch program according to their current school of attendance so that they still feel some connectivity between students and perhaps friends. So we will certainly do that to the very, very best of our ability. You know, as parents opt into launch, it may not be that, say, at Ocean Air, we have a full class of Ocean Air students from a particular grade level, but we will certainly have pockets. And as we look at how we create those classes within launch, we will group students in a grade level according to their current school site, and then they will likely be in a class with other students who will also be grouped according to their school site. So we may have, let's say, a fourth grade classroom, and they may have pockets of students from Del Mar Heights, Ocean Air, Sage Canyon, and Carmel Del Mar. So those students in those groups may make up one class, but at least they will have some students who are from their current school of attendance. Also questions about, so who is going to be the administrator overseeing the launch program? And that will be Sarah Raskin. And Sarah Raskin is our coordinator of curriculum and instruction. She'll be the launch administrator. And Sarah it's great to have her as the administrator. She already has experience in a distance learning program, overseeing that and operating that. So she comes to us with a wealth of experience. She has already been working closely with our launch teachers and will continue that work. And then the program assistant in our office, Molly McGregor, she will be the point of contact as well and act really as the launch administrator, admin assistant that you might encounter at one of our physical school sites. Class sizes in the launch program will be very similar to typical DMUSD pre-pandemic class sizes. So prior to school closure and what your child experienced in as far as class size in the 1920 school year is what we are aiming for in our launch program. So those class sizes, teachers won't be teaching classes of 60, 70 students. We aim to keep it right within the 20s, similar numbers for primary and upper grade. Many questions about the class schedule. And prior to parents making a selection, that final selection on August 3rd, we will be able to provide you with sample class schedules. We did talk the last time about productive learning time and it being approximately 4 hours for our kindergarten through second grade students and approximately 5 hours of productive learning time for our third through sixth grade students. It's important to know that that 4 hours or that 5 hours, that doesn't occur right in a row. So it's not that students will start at 8 a.m. and 4 hours later they will have received all of their live instruction and their independent work time and their lunch and then a brain break. It will look like periods of time of live instruction, asynchronous instruction, independent work time supported by the learning coach at home. Those periods of time will be spaced out over the course of a full instructional day, and that full instructional day being from 8 to 2:30. Along with that, I mentioned the learning coach, and the learning coach is really there to help support the student. The degree of support is absolutely individual and is dependent on the student's ability to work independently, the student's ability to, the age and developmental level of the students. And, you know, our very young students, they're able to tune into tasks maybe 20 to 30 minutes, where older students might be able to tune into tasks and work for a longer period of time, 45 minutes to an hour. So that it is entirely individual and dependent on the student and the child and the interaction with that coach and the child at home. The reason we use the phrase learning coach is that we recognize that it might not always be the parent who's providing that support at home. So it's intentional that we've labeled that person as a learning coach. And as I said, independent, based on the age of the child and each individual child's learning style. Prior to the start of the launch program and prior to the start of the school year, if in-person learning has to in fact begin with a remote classroom setting, we will provide a parent university. And this parent university is intended to give parents really the ins and outs of, here's the learning management system, here's how you access it, here's what Google Classroom looks like. Here's what you can expect. We expect that teachers will have the opportunity to share schedules and provide all of that information for parents with this parent university format. And then I already touched on this, but there will also be materials distribution. Unlike when we had emergency school closure and, students went home and then we had to schedule distribution of technology and students had to come back and pick up supplies. Well, we will prepare for that on the front end. So we anticipate there will be for all launch students, and likewise, if students have to begin with a remote classroom, we will have a materials distribution. So for launch students, it will include all of the technology. It will include the textbooks, the Wonders curriculum, investigations, our math textbook that goes along with our cognitively guided instruction program. It may include science materials. For our launch students, art will be taught virtually, so we will be able to provide the art materials needed for an extended period of time. We haven't worked out all of the details of that. It may be a month's worth of art materials. It may be a trimester worth of art materials. But all of that will be prepared on the front end, so parents will have the opportunity to pick that up and be prepared to start the school year on August 24th. I will go ahead and turn it over now to Jenny.
Thank you, Shelley. So we did receive some questions regarding special education and students who receive services through an IEP, specifically related to launch. So all kindergarten to 6th grade students who receive special education services through an IEP may enroll in launch and will receive special education services through distance learning. If a team meeting of any kind or an IEP meeting needs to be held, it will be held virtually. And we are designating a special education team to work exclusively with students in launch. So we will have education specialists or special education teachers who are dedicated to serving the students that receive IEP services and are enrolled in launch. This includes students whether they receive their special education services as support in general education or in a special day class or an SDC program. So we will also have a team of related service providers, such as speech and language pathologists, to provide services remotely, also for students enrolled in launch. And then, of course, when we are able to return to school, we will be providing special education services with our team that will be serving our students for in-person learning. And if we are opening with remote learning, for the students that are enrolled in the in-person experience, they will also be receiving their special education services, but it would be from the team that will be serving the school sites. So like I said, the team that will be serving students with IEPs in the launch program will be dedicated to serving those students through that distance learning platform.
So what happens next? Our district plan, we have a plan for our entire district that will address all of the requirements that are set forth by the California Department of Public Health and the Health and Human Services Agency, and also is created in consultation with the San Diego County Office of Education. All of this so that we are ready for a safe reopening. And our district plan now looks to the school sites, because every school site is unique, and people who actually are at the schools, our teachers, our principals, our staff, know those schools the best. So our school-based committees will involve all of our staff members from each school in developing daily schedules and all of the logistics that are necessary for safe reopening. So it will be exciting to see those come alive and to see the specifics related to each school. And we'll have more to share with you as we move forward about what it's going to look like if your child comes back to school in person for your child beginning on day one and then moving through the school year. So this will be an exciting phase that we enter into as we look to the logistics and the schedules and all of those things related to a safe reopening. We will be sending out an email to you, to all parents, on July 29th, as was discussed earlier. This will be part of the enrollment window. That's when it begins to actually confirm enrollment for your child for the 2020-21 school year. So that window will be from the 29th to August 3rd. And by August 3rd, we're asking you to make sure that you confirm that enrollment by either selecting launch or in-person at school learning for this upcoming school year. So we know there are a lot of questions that you've had, and we will continue to communicate with you, and we'll make sure that you get the answers that you need. Our principals are actually back, and we want to make sure that you have the right information in order to make decisions for your children for the coming school year. So we're excited about that. We are going to have another webinar, date to be determined. So before that webinar, we will make sure that we send out an additional survey to you so you can ask us any questions you have at that time. It won't be too long from now, so be waiting for us to send that email. We want to make sure that you are able to get back in here with us so we can share up-to-date information, answer your questions. And a lot of questions are common questions that we've got throughout the district. As you can see with what we've shared with you tonight, your questions and your input are very helpful for us in planning every stage. And by providing us your thoughts and your input, we're actually able to adjust our plans for your child's school, for launch, for our planning to make it as good as it can be, whether your child's in school, in person, or in launch. So that's wonderful feedback that we're getting from everybody, and we appreciate that. And as I think about this school year, I just know, I think, first of all, I think that this school year is going to be a one that our children are never going to forget. And we have such an opportunity now. I think about, we're getting ready to start a school year, and I think about the fact that, we've got these kids who belong to all of us as parents and as educators. And I think about, their lives years from now when they're adults, and they're going to remember this year. And we have such a chance right now to make it so that when they think that they're talking to their friends, or they're talking to people that they know, and they think back to the year 2020, 2021, they say, remember when? And I hope that they fill in the blank with really good things. And I think we have such an opportunity to do that. When I imagine kids going outside to learn outdoors, I picture kids loving that. I picture kids really embracing some of the things that we're talking about and doing. And this is such a chance for us to do it right and to do it well, and to make this a year that kids look back on fondly with memories, and a year that we know they'll never forget. So thanks for helping us plan this, for helping us be there for your kids. We know that you trust us with your greatest, most wonderful children, and we take that responsibility very, very seriously. We care greatly about everybody we work with. We want to do this the best way we can. And we also know that schools are full of kids, and we know that kids will be kids. And as Jenny was saying, we're talking about distancing and we're talking about all sorts of things. We also know that that means more than anything, we want in the midst of all of this and all of the planning and all of the things that we need to comply with to keep everybody healthy and safe, we also need to make sure we're keeping at our core, how do we also make this a place and an experience of joy for kids where they truly can be kids with one another and with their teachers. So thanks for being helpful in all of our process and in our planning. We will be reaching back out. That enrollment window is going to start on July 29th. It will end on August 3rd. We'll send a survey before our next webinar with you. Date to be determined. Thank you so much. Please don't hesitate to continue to reach out. Very helpful in our planning, and we're very grateful for all of our parents who are so involved and supportive, and for our wonderful staff. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and we're sending our best to your families. Thank you, everybody.